In my last video, I showed you guys this, which is the QuinLED Dig-Quad, a 4 or really 5 channel output for WLED. But I want to show you a better controller, the QuinLED Dig-Octa. And you might be saying, Aaron, that's pretty small. What are you talking about? How is that better? Well, this is just the brain board. Let me show you the power board. Now, let me explain this because it's not as straightforward as a brain board and a power board. So the idea with the QuinLED Dig-Octa system is that it is exactly that. It is a system. The system consists of a single brain board, which you can see here, and one of several different power boards, or more than one of several different power boards, depending on how you want to configure things. So the QuinLED Dig-Octa system has a single brain board and a bunch of different power boards that you can choose from. The one I have here is the Power 5, the simplest you might say of all of them, and yeah, it is pretty awesome. But let's start with the brain board because I think that is probably the cooler part of all this. So the brain board has its 8 different LED data outputs along the top, where it gets the name, the Dig-Octa. Here you can see a jumper, and that's to enable or disable this Ethernet module. And next we have 2 button terminals, so you can connect buttons and use them to control things in WLED. Next we have an I2C connector, which I recently learned it was called that and not I2C. I guess that's to add sensors and display and things like that. You can see here that it's an ESP32 that powers this thing, of course. And you can see a USB-C input for powering it and also for flashing the board if you want. Next, we have a relay output. And this thing, like the other controller, can actually control a relay. So you can keep this thing powered, this brain board with the ESP32 powered via USB-C, or another way I'll show in a second. And you can turn on and off the main power that goes to a power board with this little relay output, which is so cool. Next, we have the Ethernet module, like I mentioned before. So this thing can be connected via Ethernet rather than Wi-Fi. Oh, and by the way, on this ESP32, there is a little connection there in the corner where you can connect an antenna for better Wi-Fi reception. Next, we have a little power input if you want to power this board from the power board that I'll show in a second. Then we have an SD card slot, and I'm not really sure what we use those for with WLED, but some of you guys might know. We have the boot and reset buttons that are for the ESP32, and then here we have some dip switches for resistors, because I guess some LED strips need different resistances on the data lines, so you can switch between 2 different resistances, 249 ohms or 33 ohms. So that's this board. But there's one thing that I think probably the coolest thing, one of the coolest things about this to me, and that is this right here. This thing is called the Q Power Post. And this is actually a terminal that you can bring 5 to 24 volts DC to this board via this terminal. And that's actually a hole for a post. So let me show you that. Now these other ones, see they say ground there. That's because they act as ground. So power comes through here, and then the outside holes are for ground. So this is the power board. And on the power board, you can take the brain board and you can mount it right here. If you add this post in the middle, this post carries 5 to 24 volts DC, whatever you're supplying here to this board, through this post and powers this. And of course you have the ground here on the other 4. That is so insane that you can do that. Now let's continue on with the power board. So the power board has a 50 amp maximum, meaning the most current you can have total continuous is 50 amps running through this thing. Next we have the 2 input power terminals, and this is where you would supply power to this thing. And there's 3 terminals because a single wire to provide all the power you might need to distribute it from here is probably not going to cut it, so you may be running 3 separate wires. This port here I mentioned is what we can use to connect here to power the brain board if we don't want to use the Q power post. And lastly, we have a little display that's connected to VCC and displays the voltage of the board, which is really nice because this is stackable, meaning you can take this board and you can stack them with a bunch of other of the same or different power boards, and they would all be connected together with these posts. And this display will quickly let you know what the voltage is of this power distribution board. So that's just scratching the surface of what this thing can do, but man, what an awesome design. And huge props to Quindor over at Intermit Tech, the author of QuinLED, who has come up with this genius design.